Ever since I was a kid, I've always been a fan of sneakers. Since my days of watching Michael Jordan soar through the air like a real life superhero, I was hooked. I was also a movie buff back in the day. And being the sneaker weirdo that I am, I couldn't help but notice the often obscure cameos of now iconic sneakers that often popped up in many of my favorite movies growing up. Little did I know, but would find out later, all this was according to plan. You see, like many others, I fell victim to what is known as product placement. But product placement isn't always a bad thing. And in the case of sneakers, it helped create a vast sneaker culture that we have today. The recently released Air movie starring Ben Affleck and his buddy Matt Damon documented the rise of Nike and by extension the sneaker industry as a whole. But the road to the top of the culture was actually a longer one than you might imagine. Which got me to thinking, it's been way too long since I last did a top 10 episode, so in today's video, we'll list the top 10 movies from back in the day that featured iconic sneakers, whether it be low-key or high-key. Now let me tell you, this list is in no particular order, so don't jump on my head if you think that one should be ranked higher than the other, because there is no ranking. I'm just shooting from the hip here, so take it easy. But before we get started, this video is brought to you by us here at TakeFlight214.com. More on us at the end of the video. As for now, please smash that like button for me and let's jump into the list. Coming in at number 10, Bruce Lee's Game of Death in the Onitzica Tiger, Mexico from 1978. Game of Death was iconic for several reasons. One, being it was the last film of Bruce Lee's illustrious career and life, but also because it introduced the world to the Onitzica Tiger yellow and black colorway. Everyone remembers the scene of Bruce Lee in the iconic yellow and black fit kitted out with the tigers. It transcends generations, so much so that to this day, yellow and black is looked at as Bruce Lee's signature color. It's also the reason why Anderson the Spider Silva always fought in yellow and black in the UFC. And whenever you see references to Bruce Lee, the colorway often accompanies. Coming in at number 9, the OG Terminator featuring the Nike Vandal from 1984. When Kyle Reese is sent back to protect Sarah Connor from the Terminator, he arrives completely naked. Pause. But picked up some clothes shortly after breaking into a department store while he was on the run from the cops. And while there, he just so happens to pick up a pair of Nike Vandals in a fitting room. Decades later, when his character was reintroduced in Terminator Genesis, Nike wanted to outfit Reese in a more updated silhouette using the Air Force One as a base. However, the film's costume designer Susan Madsen was insistent that the Vandal was key to the film's continuity, especially when considering how the original film elevated the shoe's status. And in the end, Nike sided with Madsen and created a Vandal replicas just for the film. Coming in at number 8, Fast Times at Ridgemont High featuring the Vans checkerboard slip-ons. Today, the Vans checkerboard slip-ons is an essential part of any wardrobe. They go with practically anything, and they've been a mainstay classic for as long as I can remember. But we have none other than Sean Penn and his character Spicoli from the classic Fast Times at Ridgemont High to thank for that. You see, in the good old days of the 80s, product placement wasn't yet a thing, so actors were often given free rein to choose what they thought the character should wear. It was Penn's idea for Spicoli to wear the Vans as he thought that it's the perfect look for a gassed out surfer. Little did anyone know at the time, but it would launch the sneaker and the Vans brand into the pop culture stratosphere. At number 7, 1986's Alien featuring the Reebok Alien Stomper. Along with another very iconic sneaker that you know will be on the list, the Reebok Alien Stomper was one of those movie sneakers that wasn't released to the public at the time, as it was created by the company as a prop specifically for the movie. Everyone remembers that scene from Aliens. You know the scene.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Yeah, that one. Reebok didn't release the shoes until a year after the movie dropped, and even then on a super limited basis. Since then, there have been a few retro releases culminating in a big drop in honor of the original film's 40th anniversary. Coming in at number 6, Big and the Nike Air Force 2 from 1988. I gotta admit, I'm not including this entry because I, or even you, have ever heard of the Air Force 2. Till this day, being the sneakerhead that I am, I'm not familiar with the Air Force 2s. So purists, go ahead, get it all out. But the reason I'm including this is because when I was a kid, I watched this movie all the time. And I always remember the scene where Tom Hanks dances on the giant piano at the FAO Schwartz New York store that I so wanted to visit back then. I also remembered that Tom Hanks danced his jig while wearing a pair of Nikes, which I had no idea were actually Air Force 2s. Coming in at number 5. Okay, let's do it. Let's get it out of the way. 1989's Back to the Future in the Nike Air Mag. The Nike Air Mag is probably the single most iconic movie sneaker ever. The shoe was designed by the Honorable Tinker Hatfield himself for a scene of Marty arriving in the then futuristic year of 2015 and updating his fit to current trend. Well, current for the movie, that is. 20 plus years later, Nike was still yet to figure out how to make the iconic auto lacing actually work. Upon popular demand, they finally released the shoe in 2011 for a limited quantity auction, but they didn't auto lace. However, to Nike's credit, on October 21st, 2015, dubbed Future Day, they fulfilled the prophecy by releasing a legit self-lacing pair of mags. But before we got all happy, those two were auctioned off in even smaller quantities and now go for ungodly amounts. To this day, the auto lacing thing, though very novel, hasn't managed to catch on a full 8 years after the movie predicted that it would. So thanks, Marty, for getting our hopes all up for nothing. Coming in at number 4, 1994's Forrest Gump in the Nike Cortez, also lovingly known where I'm from as Dope Man Nikes. After Jenny gifted Forrest a pair of OG red, white, and blue Nike Cortez, he's seen running literally all over the country in them, harkening back to the sneaker's original purpose as Nike's first track shoe. To this day, whenever I see a pair of red, white, and blue Dope Mans, all I can think about is
I'd always think of Jenny.
At number 3, another one that has to make the list, Space Jam, featuring the Air Jordan 11 Space Jam. In 1996, Jordan was at the height of his career in world stardom, but in hindsight, the movie wasn't the best from a visual perspective. And if I'm being honest, Jordan's acting is kind of trash. Hey, don't shoot the messenger, man. LeBron actually kind of seemed a bit more natural, and that's saying a lot. But when I was a kid, I thought this movie slapped. And from a classic perspective, it still does. I know I just said that LeBron did a better job in front of the camera, but I actually prefer the first movie over the newer one. With that being said though, the Air Jordan 11 Space Jam is still one of the most sought after 11s in the colorway series. But the Space Jam 11s weren't the only J's in the movie though. There were also the 9s and the 10s, and Bill Murray wears the Air Jordan 2s during the final game. So definitely an important moment for sneakers on the big screen. Landing at number 2, 1993's Blue Chip and the Reebok Pump Vertical. When I was a kid, my aunt took my brother and me to the movies one day, and what did we see? We saw Blue Chips. I was like 7 at the time, but this was my introduction to Shaq, and the movie made sure to cement me as one of his fans. But again, being 7 years old, I didn't really notice the Reebok Pump Verticals that Shaq and Penny laced up in the movie until I went back and watched it later once I got older. Anyone who hadn't seen this movie is definitely missing out. It introduced Shaq and Penny to the world as the short-term dynamic duo that they would later become for the Orlando Magic. And it also serves as a perfect example of why college athletes now should be so thankful for the new NIL rules considering athlete pay. Last but not least, He Got Game from 1998 featuring the Air Jordan 13s, among others. And if you call yourself a sneakerhead and have never seen this movie, then shame on you. What are you doing with your life? He Got Game stars Denzel Washington and Ray Allen in a sad tale of parental incarceration and corruption and crookedness of the industrial prison complex and big money corporations. I know, sounds heavy, but hey, that's what the movie is about. But it's also about sneakers. Well, not about sneakers, but you get what I'm saying. There's an iconic scene where everyone remembers where Denzel's character Jake gets out of jail and the first place he stops is the sneaker shop to cop a fresh pair of 13s. The Air Jordan 13 was the last shoe that MJ wore for a complete season with the Chicago Bulls. He would wear the 14s briefly in the NBA Finals and would later return to play with the Wizards, but the 13s was the last shoe that he would lace up for a full season with the Bulls, and in a way, it kind of represents the end of an era. There was once a time before hyper commoditization and product placement when sneakers were placed in movies because they defined the character or the mood that the director and the writers were attempting to relay. Now, often it's just stuff, but not always. Point is, sneakers, in my opinion, is a form of art, and much like fashion, print, and movies, when done right, art mediums can be mixed and meshed together to benefit all parties involved. This is what these classic movies did for sneaker culture and vice versa. They will work together in creating what we have today, street fashion as a part of pop culture. I've talked a lot about how prior to the mid-90s or so, fashion was highly segregated. And by integrating things like sneaker culture and the movies that would later become cult classics, this would help bridge the gap and create what we have today, for better or for worse. But what do you think? Hit us up in the comment section and let us know. And now more about us here at TakeFlight214.com. We're a collection of artists creating pop culture related pieces for apparel and home decor. We've been in business over 15 years providing quality artwork and great customer service. And rather than ask you guys donate money to me for nothing in return, I'd rather you head over to the site and see if it's something there that you like. We also do custom one-of-one pieces. The link is in the description. So if you made it all the way to the end, then I thank you greatly. Please don't forget to smash that like button for me on the way out the door. Liking and sharing these videos is the best way to help our channel to continue to grow. And if you want to be updated every time we drop a new video, then hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell. That way you'll be dinged each time a new episode drops. But with that being said, I'm Nate the Great from TakeFlight214.com signing out. Until next time, peace.